welcome to Forbidden Planet TV, where I'm privileged to be joined today by author Joy Wilkinson, who has worked on Doctor Who, who's worked on Nicholas Nickleby, on The Watch, and whose directing credit, the film Mom, is it out? Has it come out yet, Joy? Was it delayed by COVID?
It's on the festival circuit at the moment, so it's showing at one in Exeter this week, and then it's at Cinequest in San Jose in March.
Oh, brilliant! Fantastic. Yeah, I look forward to catching up with that. One of the things I do on the side is I'm one of the judges on the Ealing Film Festival. So,
ooh, okay.
Yeah, I'll give you the details of that when we're finished here. So we're here to talk about your epic new Target Doctor Who novel, The Witchfinders, produced with a beautiful cover, which you're going to see scrolled here on the screen, which is in the classic style of all those beautiful old Doctor Who Target editions. Now, what was your first experience of Doctor Who, Joy?
Oh gosh, my first experience was Tom Baker, right towards the end of his tenure, and an episode called Full Circle, which was absolutely terrifying at that age, and it had kind of spiders hatching out of watermelons and biting Romana and making her do their bidding, and these hideous marshmen coming out of the waters, and that just gave me nightmares for years to come. So classic Doctor Who, basically.
Of course. Everybody seems to have those very early episode experiences. I had too, because I watched in real time the episode The Invasion, where the Cybermen come out of the sewers. Right?
That would be absolutely terrifying.
And it was. I was sat on my great grandmother's lap. You couldn't get more of a cliched story, but it's true. And we were in the suburbs of Liverpool, and I was watching that, and I didn't watch Doctor Who again for about 2 or 3 years because I was terrified.
Right.
And then the first one I watched, after being persuaded by a school friend, was The Green Death, which is actually equally terrifying.
Yes, absolutely iconic. No, well, I showed my youngest kid Rose, the first Christopher Eccleston one, with the mannequins, and he just turned to me afterwards and said, "You must never show me that again." So it's the same thing, really. It's like just a new level of terror, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. And you know, and it's not a big shock. It's the way it eats away at your mind. That's the beauty of it.
Then you can't sleep at night.
Yeah, right on. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And who is your favourite Doctor? And why is your favourite Doctor your favourite Doctor?
It's really hard, isn't it? So obviously I'm not just going to pick one. So Tom Baker, because he was my first, and so therefore he kind of is the Doctor to me. But then the first one that I saw all of was Peter Davison, and therefore he's kind of mine in that way that I just completely fell in love with him, and he was so beautiful and smart and funny, and when he changed into Colin Baker, not to detract from Colin Baker, but I just cried my heart out. That was when I understood the regeneration thing and loss and everything. So he was the biggie for me. And then of the new ones, it'd have to be 10, because he was just so doctory, and all those choices, from what he wore to the emotional stories, and his love for the role, that, you know, you could just feel it shining through.
Yes.
So yeah, those three, if I can have three.
Yeah, no, I think you certainly can. You can have as many as you want.
Yeah.
And I think they're all very, very solid choices. I too had the same experience when Davison became Colin Baker.
Did you?
No. I was hugely affected by that, because I really loved his boyish Doctor. You know,
yes.
Not my favourite. Funnily enough, my favourite over the years would be Eccleston, because I just loved the fact that you had a Northerner who's a great actor playing the Doctor. I think that's a great way to revive the show. That choice was a brilliant thing to do.
Yeah. And a very adult sort of choice, I think. Like, you know, you could feel the years and the seriousness of him. But I just, it's then when Tennant comes in, just that dazzling smile. We're in a different place now.
I think the Tennant era is a very high creative watermark for the show, actually. I think, you know.
And Rose and Donna and just the warmth and fun of it all. But yeah, I mean, Eccleston, there was you know, it's just that one series, but it's so rich and layered, and yeah.
I think that's so true, because all through Eccleston, you're kind of watching it going, oh, they're going to make this work. Oh, they've taken Doctor Who, but they've turned it into something a bit more contemporary, but it's actually working. They've kept all the important bits of the DNA. I thought it was a real triumph, actually, because that's how you get to what we've got now, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. No, they've all got their strengths, and on a different day, they can all give you something different. But I think it just comes down to your own moments with them and your own life memories, doesn't it? Really.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now your novel is The Witchfinders. So could you tell me of the genesis of that story in the first place, and then how you came to do the Target novelization?
Yeah, so when we were in the run-up to Jodie's first season, we did writers' rooms where there were lots of us and all just pitching lots of ideas. We'd kind of come along for a week, and we'd have, you know, a different setting or a different character or a different alien, and right at that very beginning, I had this idea for a story to do with Pendle Hill, because that's the area that I come from, and to do with mud monsters. I think I used the line, Pendle Hill rises up into an army of mud monsters, and Chris was like, make a note of that one. So that was there right from the beginning, and then when he decided which episodes he wanted for that series, that was on his wish list, and I you know, there was I was very possessive of it, and I was like, that's my story, I've got to do that one. So it evolved, writing it for that series. It evolved from being kind of the Morax being mud monsters all the way through it to this incarnation of them going into the villagers, and so it developed as an episode, and then in terms of the fiction, I'd just written a short story for the Target storybook, and as a result of that, I guess they liked it, and they said, do you want to do an original novel, or do you want, we're doing these novelizations, would you do the Witchfinders? And you know, that was one of those lovely choices, but basically, you know, you want to do a Target novel, don't you?
Right.
Given that choice. And it also, just because the episodes are so tight and 50 minutes and mostly running, that when you've created that world and had other thoughts about it, you want to go back into it and find those extra spaces without sort of budgetary constraints. And because we shot my episode in like freezing cold Wales in February, there's only so much you could do, you know, it, like the snow kept stopping it. So this was a chance to just go in and let them be without any worries about things like that.
Now that brilliantly dovetails into my next question, which is, without too many spoilers, but then again, everybody's seen the episode. So could you talk me through some of the key differences between the script, the episode as it aired, and the novel that you produced?
Yeah. So it's, well, if I start with the fact that I read Rose, which was Russell T Davies's novelization, which is kind of perfect and does this beautiful thing where, because it's one companion and the Doctor, it really is, you know, she takes your hand and takes you through that whole story from her point of view, and I was just so aware that you couldn't do that with my episode, because you've got several companions and lots of characters, and it was mid-series, so you weren't meeting the Doctor and having that experience. So it took me a while percolating it to go, how do you do this as fiction? How do you not be jumping around the whole time with it, to give people a sort of satisfying arc from beginning to end? And then I came up with this kind of framing story that involves Willa, who's the girl who we meet in the story. And so it's not dominant, but we start with that and we come back to it throughout and we end with that, and hopefully that pulls it all together as a bigger experience than the TV show, and it's got some surprises in it. It kind of goes into the future, it takes us into space a bit, which the episode was all earthbound. So we get to go into the TARDIS, which everybody wants to write, and so it's got that overarching story, and then within the story itself you've just got the time to go into Becca's story and Bilehurst Cragg's story and the Morax's story and how they got to Earth in Pendle Hill in the first place. So even though the entire episode is in there, it's just bigger and more embedded in the show, I would say, because you've got these chances to nod to other episodes in the classic series and the new series and just make it feel like it is part of that whole lineage, really. That's the really exciting thing, that you can suddenly go in the Doctor's head and have those memories,
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. I can't wait to read the book. That's awesome. Now, just before we go, Joy, when you look back, what would you say for you have been the greatest moments of your involvement with Doctor Who since you've been on board? Oh my God. I mean, it's the bits, it just doesn't feel real for a very long time. And, before I was on it, I was just very aware of lots of writers who said, oh, I'm writing for Doctor Who, and then their episode never materialized because obviously it hadn't worked out, various periods in the past. So I just absolutely did not believe it would happen until I was on set, really. And then you're on set and the TARDIS is there, and Jodie's there, and they're actually, the Sonic's there. It's all those just glancing off the iconic moments, really. Also, when we were in the run-up to it, we were shown around the warehouses in Cardiff, and you've suddenly got like weeping angels in cages and props from old episodes. And you vacillate between the kind of fan in you and the, oh, but this is actually happening now and I'm really doing this. It still doesn't feel real a lot of the time. My oldest son has a Doctor Who club at his school, and it's things like that. Amazing. When you go around and you go, and they have jelly babies, and you go, and I've got this little part of that, I've got this little connection to that, and it's a total privilege and thrill. That's wonderful. And before we wind up, I'd like to ask you two things. What are you working on at the moment? And do you have any recent books or authors you've read that you'd recommend? Oh, gosh. Let me think. So at the moment, I'm working on a few things. I'm working on a Netflix series called Lockwood & Co., which it's not shooting yet. So that'll be out I guess it's next year, but I've also just directed my second short, which is called The Everlasting Club, which is based on an old ghost story that some of your viewers might know, by a guy called Arthur Gray. But this is an updating of it. The old version's this old boys club at Cambridge, and my version is like a bunch of young women resurrecting it now, but they're really resurrecting it without knowing it. So we're just finishing post on that, and then that'll go on festival circuit as well. And gosh, I've got a terrible memory for books, and I've literally just been working my way through the Library of Time, the collection of the new targets that came out with the Doctor Who book. So they're obviously they're brilliant, and the books that the Netflix series are based on, which they're about a bunch of teenage ghost hunters, and it's Joe Cornish who's sort of leading the series, and I totally recommend those books. There's a series of 5, and they're absolutely absorbing and wonderful. Everyone from my kids to my mum have read them and loved them. And what's the title of that series again? It's Lockwood and Co. It's Lockwood and Co. Yeah. And the first one is called The Screaming Staircase. Brilliant. Yeah. Hey, Joy, thank you so much for joining me today. It's wonderful to meet you. I'm a big fan of your work, so thank you for spending the time with us today.
No worries, and lovely to meet you too.
Really nice to meet you. If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.